Absa is a subsidiary of Barclays, which holds a 55.5% stake in the group. It has a market cap of 108.8 billion rand and is about to merge with Barclays Africa. Absa has a price to earnings ratio of 12 and a dividend yield of 3.9%. And let's just quickly look at that share price action. Tell me what's happening here.
Looks exactly the same as the Standard Bank graph, don't you agree?
It does. It looks very similar to
pretty
Standard
much
Bank.
Gone sideways for the better part of 3.5 years after a nasty dip in 2009 and recovery. Recently, in that recent spike over there in early January, late December, was actually the announcement that you were going to be getting more of Barclays Africa, or Barclays were decided to inject all their African assets, sans, I think, Zimbabwe and Egypt, whereas we all know, I mean, those aren't exactly runaway investor destinations right now. So I think that's key for everyone else. You're going to be diluted, but you get this upside. So I don't think they overpaid Absa for those assets, and equally I don't think Barclays would have wanted them to have overpaid. So it was kind of neutral, but in the end positive if you're an Absa shareholder long term.
How do you feel about Absa long term in the first place?
I think Absa has got a story that will unfold over the next 5 or 6 years. Its exposure to Africa is certainly going to be a growth story. I think the Barclays exercise of putting their African assets into Absa is probably the single largest occurrence of Afro-pessimism. It's come about at the end of the strike action. It has been a period where a number of international investors thought, we're going to dump African assets. We certainly don't want South African exposure. That's what Barclays did. They took all of their African assets, which they thought is probably going to be, in general, too much of risk, dumped it into Absa. In any event, it's not as though Barclays has done so well with their European or North American assets, but this was one way for them to
You're sounding a little angry when it comes to Barclays.
Very angry.
Yeah,
the Afro-pessimism.
I think it could have been done a lot more elegantly, and I think it was just forced on South African shareholders. We started off with what would have been an elegant merger between some of Absa's assets and some of Barclays' operations, and that goes back to about 2005. Now, it's just been a pump and dump.
Well, pump and dump, what can I say? Those are very strong words. You do feel that this is a good move, though?
I think it's good if you're an Absa shareholder, ultimately. Although if you look at the geographical, where these Barclays assets are, they're everywhere from Kenya, Tanzania, downwards, Zambia. So you're talking mostly on the East Coast. So think about the agricultural potential, because typically Absa have been a friend of agriculture in general, having come from the old Volkskas Trust Bank environment. So I think that bodes pretty well in the long run. And just think from a cost-cutting exercise what that can yield to. Moving your head office here, so you've got one centralized head office and all these satellite offices where you can maybe not replicate things. I think that's a net positive.
Hot or not on Absa, Levan?
I'm not hot on Absa. I do think it's good.
You would have surprised me if you were hot.
It's a good portfolio buy if you've got a 10-year outlook, but all of the sum of the parts are going to take far too long to start working in synergy. As you mentioned, the duplicity of offices. Also, there's a lot of cultural differences between East, West, South Africa. Yes, I think the story is good. It's a 10-year story, and for now I'm still angry with Absa.
Hot or not on Absa?
Yeah, I'm pretty neutral, but I'm going to lean a little bit more towards hot, saying that the price action that we haven't seen, all that will come to a head.
I need to clarify, it's either hot or not. You can't lean one way or another.
I'm leaning towards hot, Bronwyn.
You're going with hot.